Hello viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jafri with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. Thanks to the consistent efforts of both New Delhi and Dhaka, the Indo-Bangladesh relations have reached new heights, with ties now getting stronger in different domains of defense, economy and culture. Recently, foreign ministers of India and Bangladesh, S. Jaishankar and Kalam Abdul Momen met in Indian capital New Delhi to provide additional impetus to thriving relations.
In line with India's strengthening ties with neighbouring Bangladesh, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar hosted his Bangladeshi counterpart Abul Kalam Abdul Momen in New Delhi for the 7th Joint Consultative Commission. Both the ministers signed and exchanged agreements for furthering their ties during the meeting, which was the first physical JCC event since the advent of the coronavirus pandemic. Underscoring the partnership that has become robust over time, Jaishankar applauded the joint efforts of both the countries during the COVID pandemic that saved several lives. India was the first country Bangladesh looked onto as soon as the vaccine manufacturing started in different countries and it found itself with none. The gamut of ties has expanded between the two over several years of formal relationship, and both New Delhi and Dhaka have decided to take their partnership into the fresh domains of several fields, including the cyber security and the upgradation of the railway system.
We have also jointly overcome the pandemic, and whether it was vaccine cooperation, whether it was the Oxygen Express, whether it was medical oxygen plants, supplies of medicines and life-saving drugs that we gave to each other. Our shared fight against COVID-19 has been exemplary. We now look forward to working with you to take our ties into new domains, artificial intelligence, cyber security, startups, fintech. We were very pleased to receive your ICT minister. We had a very good visit by your railway minister recently, and we would like to expand our cooperation on upgradation of the railway system.
India and Bangladesh are actively involved in cooperation projects to boost bilateral relations and people-to-people connections between the two sides. Both the countries expressed satisfaction that despite challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, they worked closer than ever before in every sector, from security and border management to mutually beneficial trade and investment flows. The two sides also discussed ways to increase train services and flights to facilitate the large number of Bangladeshi travelers who come to India for both tourism and medical treatment. After a long gap of more than 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic, passenger train services between India and Bangladesh resumed on May 29 this year. The previous JCC meeting, which was held in September 2020, saw the two dignitaries discussing ways to establish peace within shared borders. The year 2021 marked the golden jubilee of the bilateral dealings between Bangladesh and India.
India is the most important and the closest neighbor of Bangladesh. And I'm proud to say that because of the initiatives that you have taken, the Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi has taken, and also our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, we achieved a lot of stability and peace within this region, and that is helping us to have development.
A role model for bilateral and regional cooperation. The ministers appreciated that the trust and mutual respect shared between the two countries have only strengthened in the last decade. Over the last decades, India-Bangladesh relations have warmed up, entering a new era of cooperation, moving beyond historical and cultural ties to become more assimilated in the areas of trade, connectivity, and defense. Observers say the JCC meeting helped prepare the grounds for Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's planned visit to India, which is expected in July this year.
Moving on, the situation for minorities is getting grimmer by the day in war-torn Afghanistan. In line with continual targeted attacks, another Sikh Gurdwara was attacked by terrorists belonging to Islamic State of Khorasan. International community and observers called out the Taliban government, which has maintained since its takeover of the country last year that Afghanistan is safe and secure under their rule.
The minority Sikh community in Afghanistan continues to remain a soft target for terrorist attacks. Recently, several terrorists associated with the Islamic State of Khorasan attacked Gurdwara Sahib Kartaparwan in capital Kabul. At least 2 people were killed in what is the latest in a line of targeted attacks on minorities in Islamic Afghanistan. An explosive-laden vehicle detonated just a few meters away from the temple gates. Had it passed the barrier, the damage and casualties would have been exponentially greater. Recounting the horrific details, an eyewitness said he saw intense fighting between the 2 sides that continued outside and inside the Gurdwara.
بعد 6 و 15 دقیقه بود که صدای فایر شد. با این نگاه کردیم که چوکیدار درمسال زده بودن که تو مرمی در قلبش خورده بود. زخمی افتیده بود. ما طالبان زوج فایر کردن سر دست بود. دوستا سر زوا فایر کردن و داخل شدن. 1 نفر بود و داخل درمسال شد. اگه داخل درمسال که شد پسان یا فایرکان یا فیکس 2 ساعت بعد موتربام اینجا انفجار کرد.
The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan has called for the protection of all minorities in Afghanistan, including Sikhs, Hazaras, and Sufis. The Taliban, which rose to power in August of 2021, claimed to have secured the country, but repeated terrorist attacks not only contradict those claims, but also give weight to the international community's concerns of a potential risk of militancy resurgence. In addition to receiving widespread international criticism, the Taliban was also asked by several countries, including India, home to the Sikhs, to assertively act towards the protection of minorities. Observers believe that such attacks could set off a new wave of terrorism in the country, with smaller groups receiving tacit support from insiders. And this, they believe, has been the primary reason behind the US and the West not involving themselves in rebuilding the war-torn country. Also, the United States has not released Afghan funds frozen by it earlier this year, fearing its use by the Taliban to fund terror activities. Despite the recent attacks, some of which claimed by the Islamic State militant group, the Taliban, however, say that they can still fight all forms of attacks on its sovereignty and its people. The international community does not think so.
Taliban is not in a position to provide security to minorities, number one. Number two, I would say that this hatred for non-Muslims exists, and ability of these groups to carry out or kill non-Muslims with impunity exists.
Prior to the Taliban's takeover last year, Hindus and Sikhs in Afghanistan numbered only approximately 600. Reports indicate that that number has dramatically decreased. Those remaining have been the subject of targeted attacks, predominantly by Sunni radical groups. The targeted attacks have driven Sikhs and Hindus out of the country, especially those with the economic and social resources to relocate. The situation continues to get grimmer by the day, and with no light appearing at the end of the tunnel, one can only hope against hope that things change one day and humanity prevails.
Moving on. Sri Lanka is battling its worst financial crisis since independence in 1948, as decades of economic mismanagement and recent policy errors, coupled with a hit from COVID-19 to tourism and remittances, drying up foreign reserves to record lows. And after several groups, it was the college students who took to the streets this week in capital Colombo as they demanded the resignation of the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Hundreds of university students, trade unionists and artists marched through the streets of Sri Lanka's capital Colombo, demanding the resignation of the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Many protesters accuse Rajapaksa and his influential family of mishandling the economy. The worsening situation of Sri Lanka has led people angered by long queues, often overnight, for fuel, faced off with security forces over the weekend.
කතා මුළු ජනතාවම එක හඬකින් කියද්දි ඔබ ඵලයන් ඔබ තමයි මේ ලංකාව මුහුණ දෙලා තියෙන මේ ආර්ථික දේශපාලන අර්බුදයට වගකියුත්තා මූලික වගකියුත්තා උඹ
අපිට දෙන්න කියලා අපිට නිදහසේ ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් රටක් තමයි මේ දරුවෝ ඉල්ලන්නේ මේ දරුවන්ගේ අම්මලාට තිබුණා වූ හීන සියල්ල බොඳ වෙච්ච මොහොතක මේ දරුවන්ට තිබුණු හීන සියල්ල බොඳ වෙච්ච වේලාවක තමයි මේ දරුවන් ඉල්ලන්නේ දූෂිත පාලකයින් අපිට එපා ගෝඨාභය දැන් ඔයා ෆේල් ගෙදර යන්න.
The ongoing economic situation of Sri Lanka has been exhausting drivers who have been waiting for hours for petrol. Sri Lanka is scrambling to find foreign exchange to pay for desperately needed fuel imports, and its existing stock of petrol and diesel is projected to run out in a matter of days. The island nation also ordered public sector employees to work from home for 2 weeks due to the fuel shortage.
අතේ ඉඳලා ඉන්නවා දැන් අද උදේ දැන් එනවා කියලා කියනවා තාමත් නැහැ. මේ දවසක් මේ කියන්නේ අපි සෑහෙන අමාරුවෙක් මේක කරන්නේ. හම්බ කරගන්න විදියකුත් නැහැ, ගෙදර යන්න විදියකුත් නැහැ, නිදා ගන්න විදියකුත් නැහැ. දැන් තෙල් ගත්තම තෙල් අරගෙන ඉවරලත් ආයෙ රස්සා කරන්නත් බෑ නිදා ගන්න යන්න වෙනවා.
An International Monetary Fund team began bailout talks in Sri Lanka on Monday as the country's cabinet cleared a constitutional amendment to dilute presidential powers that could assuage protesters amid rising tensions. A 9-member IMF team, which arrived in the commercial capital Colombo recently, held talks with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe on how to structure what will be Sri Lanka's 17th loan program with the global lender. The United Nations has outlined a plan to raise $47 million to provide assistance to 1.7 million Sri Lankans worst hit by the crisis over the next 4 months.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
Villagers struggle to cope with destruction and losses in northeast Afghanistan after a massive earthquake killed at least 1,000 people. The magnitude 6.1 earthquake struck early on Wednesday on 22nd June about 160 kilometers southeast of Kabul in arid mountains dotted with small settlements near the border with Pakistan. While thousands of families have been affected by the quake, there are hundreds others whose entire families have been wiped out. Paktita province remains one of the worst affected areas. Poor communications and a lack of proper roads are hampering relief efforts in a country already grappling with a humanitarian crisis which has deteriorated since the Taliban took over last August. According to US government data, the toll makes it Afghanistan's deadliest earthquake in 2 decades. As per sources, Myanmar's military rulers have without explanation ordered all legal proceedings against deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi to be moved from a courtroom to a prison. Nobel laureate Suu Kyi, who turned 77 on June 19, has been charged with at least 20 criminal offences since she was toppled in a coup early last year, including multiple counts of corruption. Junta leader Min Aung Hlaing has so far allowed Suu Kyi to remain in detention at an undisclosed location in the capital Naypyidaw, despite convictions for incitement and several minor offences. Suu Kyi denies all charges. Suu Kyi's marathon court proceedings take place behind closed doors with only limited information reported by state media. A gag order has been imposed on her lawyers, whose only access to her is on trial days. It is not clear how much Suu Kyi knows of the crisis in her country, which has been in chaos since the coup, with the military struggling to consolidate power and facing increasing resistance from militia groups. Electronic substrate for electric product is required to be shaped, miniature and applicable to multiple uses. Japanese electronic parts companies have the technology to make various electronic substrates.
ジェットディスペンサーという、液体を飛ばす技術ですね。これが非常に私どもが得意な技術になってまして、高速で、毎秒で500ショット、600ショットのスピードで塗布ができるジェットディスペンサーというものを我々が装備しております。でそれを全自動装置に2ヘッドにつけてですね、高速に塗布処理をするという装置であります。精密な微量な技術といったところが非常に難しい技術になります。これはやはり日本のお家芸として半導体、それから電子部品、そういったところに非常に多くの実績がある。
The foundation of semiconductors and electronic substrates are replaced by a variety of materials. The technology to attach to cloth and film was realized by changing the temperature at the time of installation. For electric vehicle technology, mass production of electronic substrate is required. Robot technology has enabled a fully automated line in the manufacture of an electronic substrate, which has many processes. Technological advancement increases the variation and mass production of electronic substrates. Japanese parts companies contribute to electronic industry by background support technology. A food machine is being used to automatically prepare wagashi, a Japanese traditional sweet dish. It beautifully creates the delicate appearance of the sweet. Food machine making competition is growing tough in the course of creating such a level of technology that can give taste similar to traditional cooking.
こちらの中をご飯が通って、ここで一つ一つシャリ玉ができてきます。そのシャリ玉をこの機械が掴んで、こちらのタブレットでデザインした通りに並べていくと、そういった機械になります。いかに職人さんが手で握るシャリ玉ができるかというところが非常に難しくて、私どもの機械はそれにこだわって作っております。一つ一つのシャリ玉が空気を含んだものになるようにしっかりと成形して、ただ持っても壊れないと、ただ口に入れるとほどけるようなシャリ玉になるような機械を作っております。
Recently, Japanese rice balls have been sold at all stores all over the world. Visitors are amazed with the new technology. The automatic fried rice machine is designed to give the same feeling as traditionally cooked fried rice. It is very important that the temperature of the pot is kept at the same level and the ingredients are mixed properly.
Moving on. Today we take you to India's eastern state of Odisha to witness the 3-day-long Rajjo festival that was celebrated recently amidst huge fanfare in capital Bhubaneswar. Adding the bright colours to the landscapes of Odisha, this festival commemorates the fertility of Mother Earth and womanhood. Let's have a look.
Young girls and women decked up in their best of dresses and riding on swings while singing and dancing were the major scenes in Orissa during Rajo festival that was celebrated recently with huge pomp and show. This 3-day-long festival is the most important carnival in the state that celebrates menstruation and womanhood. It is believed that Mother Goddess Earth menstruates for those 3 days and hence she is given a ceremonial bath on the 4th day. As a mark of respect towards the earth during her menstruation days, all agricultural activities like ploughing, sowing is suspended for the 3 days as Mother Earth is expected to be going through rejuvenation.
ये हमारा साधारणतः उड़ीसा का एक मुख्य पर्व है जिसमें भगवान जी का पूजा तो नहीं होता है, लेकिन ये माने खास करके ये लड़कियों के लिए मनाते हैं। और ये हमारा जैसे कि बोलते हैं कि हमारा उड़ीसा में 3 दिन के लिए पृथ्वी माता रजस्वला होता है। जैसे कि हमारा क्या बोलते हैं इसको, मासिक धर्म बोलते हैं, तो वैसे ही माने पृथ्वी माता का रजस्वला को बोलते हैं कि वो रज मनाते हैं।
Celebrating the spirit of womanhood, this festival is of utmost importance to women who pamper themselves by wearing new dresses, applying alta and dressing up with fashionable accessories. During the 3 days, women are given a break from all household work and they spend the entire day having fun on rope swings, playing indoor and outdoor games, singing folk songs and eating scrumptious food.
रोज़ों में हम नए कपड़े पहनते हैं, हमारे घर में पकवान बनता है, फिर हम पीठा खाते हैं और हम झूला झूलते हैं।
लड़कियां तो बहुत सज संवरते हैं और पाँव में अलता लगाते हैं, कुमकुम लगाते हैं माथे पे, और डोली जो ये सब डोली है ना, इसमें बहुत माने झूलते हैं। और औरत सब सज के संवर के वो ताश लूडो खेलते हैं और ये क्या बनाते हैं और पोड़ो पिठा खाते हैं, चकुली पिठा खाते हैं। ये हमारा उड़ीसा का एक मुख्य पर्व है।
Each day of the festival has its own name and significance. The first day is called Pahili Rajo. Second day is Rajo Sankranti or Mithun Sankranti, and the third day is called Basi Rajo. During this festive occasion, various local delicacies, especially pithas like poda, chakuli, arisa, kakera, chena and other sweet items are also prepared that double the fun of revelers. Besides, sweet beetle witness a huge demand during this period as it has become a must-have for everyone during Rajo.
बहुत सारे तरह के पीठे मिलते हैं हमें, जैसे कि चकुली पीठा एंड मोंदा पीठा, पोड़ो पीठा, खीरा पीठा, ऐसे बहुत सारे के मिलते हैं।
Though the country still struggles with the taboos related to menstruation, as it is perceived as something impure and embarrassing in our Indian society, this Rajo festival signifies how menstruation, fertility and womanhood are the cause of celebration and not shame in Indian culture.
Odisha state observes state holiday on first day of the festival. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.